Imagine dancing for days without stopping, your feet bleeding, your body collapsing from exhaustion. But you still can't stop. In the summer of 1518, amid crop failures and disease sweeping the region, this nightmare became reality when hundreds of people in Strasbourg danced themselves to death in a frenzy. At the time, authorities blamed hot blood and even built stages for more dancing, yet modern experts call it mass sociogenic illness. What force could compel people to literally dance until their hearts gave out? The answer reveals a terrifying truth about the human mind that scientists are still struggling to understand today. And the most disturbing part? The conditions that triggered this deadly dance are more common in our world than you might think. The anatomy of mass delusion. Mass sociogenic illness reveals a disturbing truth. Your mind isn't entirely your own. Under specific conditions, your thoughts and even your physical body can be hijacked by the collective fears of those around you. As Dr. Robert Bartholomew explains, it's like the placebo effect in reverse, a phenomenon that has shaped communities and altered lives throughout human history. Mass hysteria doesn't just appear randomly. It emerges from a perfect storm of social conditions that make us vulnerable. Picture a community under extreme stress, maybe from war, economic hardship, or social upheaval. Add a thick layer of uncertainty about the future, and finally, mix in a shared belief system that gives people a framework to understand their fears. These ingredients create the perfect recipe for reality to start breaking down. The dancing plague that struck Strasbourg wasn't a one-time anomaly. Communities throughout history have fallen victim to mysterious outbreaks that spread from person to person like wildfire. These events reveal something unsettling about human psychology. Our perception of reality is more fragile than we'd like to admit. Consider the Salem witch trials of 1692. What began as strange fits and bodily contortions among a few young girls quickly escalated into a community-wide panic. Rational thought crumbled as neighbors accused neighbors of consorting with the devil. By the time the hysteria burned itself out, 20 were hanged and 1 pressed to death, while over 150 were accused. No supernatural forces were at work in Salem, just the powerful influence of suggestion, fear, and group psychology. What makes these events so chilling is that the symptoms people experience are completely real to them. Your brain can actually create physical sensations based purely on expectation. Feel a tingling in your arm right now? That suggestion alone might have caused some readers to experience exactly that sensation. This power of the mind explains how hundreds of people can share symptoms with no physical cause. Dr. Bartholomew calls mass hysteria a barometer of societal fears, reflecting each era's anxieties, from demonic possession in medieval Europe to chemical warfare in Delusion. The mad gasser of Mattoon shows this pattern perfectly. In 1944, this small Illinois town fell into panic over reports of a mysterious figure spraying gas into homes. Aline Kearney described a sickly sweet scent before her legs went limp. Police found no evidence of gas or an intruder, yet the symptoms were real enough to those experiencing them. What's truly unsettling is how quickly these events escalate. One person's symptoms trigger symptoms in another person, creating a feedback loop of fear that can engulf entire communities in days. The initial trigger might be small, an unusual smell, a strange sound, or one person fainting. But the psychological contagion spreads rapidly through social networks. The human mind is wired for social contagion. We unconsciously mirror the behaviors and feelings of those around us. It's a deeply embedded survival mechanism. You've experienced this on a small scale when you've caught yourself yawning after seeing someone else yawn, or feeling sad after watching a friend cry. This same mechanism can spread anxiety, fear, and even physical symptoms through groups of people, making psychological contagion as real and impactful as any virus. But here's where our modern world adds a disturbing new dimension. If mass hysteria spreads through social contact, what happens when we add today's technology and media into the equation? Social media can connect millions of people instantly, creating vast networks where fears, beliefs, and even symptoms can spread faster than ever before. The isolation many feel despite being digitally connected creates the perfect conditions for new forms of mass phenomena. Throughout history, these outbreaks have followed predictable patterns, but seeing them in action reveals just how easily our shared reality can fracture under the right circumstances. When reality breaks down. Let's examine how these psychological patterns manifest in real-world outbreaks, revealing the fragile boundary between shared belief and physical reality. In June 1962, some 60 workers at a textile mill fell ill with mysterious symptoms: numbness spreading through their limbs, nausea turning their stomachs, and strange rashes appearing on their skin. The culprit? A June bug infestation, or so everyone believed. The truth was far more unsettling. Entomologists found 0 insects, and half the workers fell ill only after reading the headlines in the local paper. The symptoms were real, but the cause existed entirely in the workers' minds. The June bug epidemic demonstrates how easily our perception of reality can fracture when certain triggers are present. Over 90% of the affected workers were on the same shift and had been working overtime. Their bodies were exhausted, their minds stretched thin, creating the perfect conditions for mass hysteria to take root. These outbreaks don't happen randomly. They require specific ingredients: social isolation that intensifies shared experiences, overwhelming stress that weakens our psychological defenses, and crucially, an authority figure or media outlet that suggests a cause. Once the local newspaper reported on the June bug infestation, more workers began experiencing symptoms, creating a feedback loop of fear and physical response. The Tanganyika laughing epidemic of 1962 shows how powerful these events can become. In what is now Tanzania, an outbreak of uncontrollable laughter spread through schools like wildfire. What began with a few giggling students escalated until more than 1,000 people across 4 schools were affected with symptoms ranging from laughing fits to pain, rashes, and fainting. Schools closed for weeks as the epidemic spread from village to village. This wasn't just a case of contagious laughter. It was a manifestation of deep psychological distress during a period of major political upheaval following Tanzania's independence from Britain. Environmental factors often act as the match that lights the fire. The writing tremor epidemic of 1892 emerged when students and teachers developed hand tremors and muscle pain. The trigger? New teaching methods that required physically demanding penmanship drills. The physical stress created a pathway for psychological symptoms to manifest. What's truly chilling is how these events target specific social groups. In 2011, teenage girls at Leroy Junior Senior High School in New York suddenly developed identical tic-like behaviors: facial twitches, uncontrollable gestures, and unusual vocalizations. The first affected student had a Tourette's diagnosis, creating a template for the symptoms that followed. Despite extensive medical testing, doctors found no physical cause for the other cases. Notably, symptoms began to improve as media attention faded, suggesting the power of suggestion tied to coverage. Experts eventually diagnosed the outbreak as mass conversion disorder, another name for mass hysteria. Modern cases suggest we're not more immune today. In fact, social media may make us more vulnerable. Recent cases of young people developing tic disorders after watching TikTok videos of others with tics shows how symptoms can now spread beyond physical proximity. The screen between us doesn't protect us from the power of suggestion. Dan Taberski, creator of the podcast Hysterical, describes mass psychogenic illness as a line-of-sight condition. Seeing someone else's symptoms becomes crucial for them to spread, creating a visual pathway for contagion. But instead of limiting this spread, social media amplifies it, potentially connecting millions of people to the same psychological triggers simultaneously. What triggers mass hysteria isn't supernatural forces, but psychological mechanisms we all possess. Groupthink that aligns our perceptions with those around us, social pressure that pushes us to conform, and the powerful human need to belong. These forces shape our experience of reality more than most of us would like to admit, and they're as active in our modern world as they were 5 centuries ago in Strasbourg. These psychological mechanisms don't just exist in textbooks. They shape our daily reality in ways we rarely acknowledge. Our hyperconnected world, with its constant streams of information and heightened collective anxieties, creates the perfect breeding ground for mass phenomena. When you hear about mysterious outbreaks with no clear medical explanation, remember those dancers in Strasbourg. They weren't victims of supernatural forces, but of something far more powerful: the human mind's ability to manifest belief into physical reality. So next time you feel fear ripple through a crowd or see an anxious headline, remember the dancers of Strasbourg. You might be witnessing history waiting to repeat itself. If this glimpse into the mind's darker side fascinated you, hit like and subscribe for more true crime mysteries and psychological chills.